yeah, just play it and then we'll go from there.
All right. Do you want to introduce the episode?
No,
No?
no.
All
Let's
right.
just jump into it.
Okay.
JT, what's up, man?
Hey, Jonathan. How's it going? I'm trying to decide if I leave all of that nonsense that just happened before we started this episode in just as the introduction, because it's been so long that I couldn't find the record button, and we decided not to introduce the topic. So I don't know. Maybe we just leave that in.
Maybe you just go for it. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll see. But no, man, it's excited to be back. I know it's been a while. I know we've been busy. It's been a crazy year. We just had the 250, other stuff going on, holidays. So hopefully everyone had a good Thanksgiving. Is having a great, Christmas and all that. Happy New Year's. But yeah, man, let's get into it. Let's. What do you want to talk about today, man?
Well, today, I mean, since it has been a while and we've got through the busy season of the holidays, I kind of want to, it's the downtime for a lot of the people like myself up here in the Midwest. We're kind of caught in like a weird limbo where there's not super safe ice because it hasn't been cold enough, but the water's frozen, so we can't take kayaks out. So this was probably a good time where people are honestly just researching accessories and maybe planning for 2025 with what they want to do. So I think today we should do a quick hitting little 5 to 10 minute episode on something super simple, but people are really looking into right now, and that's just rod holders. And whether that's the built-in ones that come with many, like a lot of fishing kayaks, or the external ones from like Yak Attack and other brands and stuff. So let's maybe just start there. Maybe let's just talk about the internal ones and how functional they are, the built-in rod holders.
Yeah, like you said, it's cold outside. There's not a lot of fishing going on. It's more like rigging season versus fishing season. So I'm sure people are looking at, upgrading stuff. But for sure, rod holders are. It's kind of one of those things that it's not a necessity, but it's just one of those things that it can make your day more enjoyable. There's, every kayak has a different, different place they put the rod holders. Whether most of them are going to put two in the back. Some of them have some up front, whether they're further up front or right by the seat. But yeah, that's something to look at. If you're buying a kayak, hey, where am I going to put my rods? How am I storing these? A lot of that comes back to full circle is what kind of water are you fishing? Because I know if you get on the river, you don't want those rod holders necessarily that are always going to stick straight up.
Yep.
You may want something that sits on the side or sits in front of you, or maybe it's off your black pack and it lays them more flat. But starting off with Yak Attack, they make that Omega rod holder. They have a regular and a pro version. To me, that's kind of the starting spot for everyone, because you can literally put those on any track. It's got the lock and load base that you can mount to any track. You can always take them off. You can adjust them. You'll be able to turn them 360 degrees. You can adjust the angles on that. To me, those are super simple. And I'm sure you've used them, JT. And I mean, you can just slap them on just about anything.
Yeah, and one thing to consider too is it's a good point about the vertical or the horizontal versus vertical rod storage. It really is important because there's not many kayaks that come with the built-in horizontal. There are some out there, but that option is very limited. So yes, if you're someone who fishes rivers or is going to fish in any area that's got debris that you're going to try and go under, I know I've made that mistake. I'm lucky I didn't lose rods, but I was like, I'll just sneak under this tree, with 3 6-foot rods vertical, and then you just kind of hear them start catching and going. So like it's just you forget about them. You really do. Because the advantage of a kayak is you snake in some pretty awesome spots. But that's one thing to look at. So if you don't want, if you want a built-in horizontal, that your options are pretty limited compared. But yes, the Yak Attack was, I think, the first ones that I had added. And you got to look too, because if you're using a bait caster or a spinning rod, they fit in there a little different. And they really fit in there kind of goofy with the built-in ones. Like I know my spinning rods, even my bigger ones for pike fishing, I kind of have to lay them a different way because they don't go straight in with the spinning rod facing down. So I gotta have to spin the facing rod facing backwards. At least that's my experience. So there's just some things to think about for that.
Yeah, and so like on our website, and this is what I'm looking at right now because I want to know what's the best selling ones. And so like you literally go to it's accessories and outfitting, and then that drop down it's got rod holders. So like the Omega ones, those are best selling ones, the Pro and the regular one. Along with that horizontal talk, there is kayaks that the Hobies, the 12 and the 14 Pro Angler, they have internal rod stores. It's horizontal. I think the some of the Jacksons have it, like the Kusa, the Nar. I think even the Big Rig have some options like that. But the other cool thing too is like the Crescent. It's got horizontal rod storage, but it's not like a tube that you're sliding your rod into. They've got some notches underneath the seat and up in the front that actually allow you to lay those rods down in front of you, so that way you can paddle, put your rod down and it's in a spot where it's not going to slide off. But yeah, you definitely want to think about that. But the other cool thing is, the next best selling Yak Attack is the Side Stage Pro rod rack. And what that is, it's very similar to the Omegas, where it's actually going to be track mounted. But the cool thing is you can put that on, one side of the kayak. So it's kind of cool because you can, store them horizontally, get them to your side. If you're a paddler, this may not be the best bet for you. If you're on some gnarly rivers, it may not be the best bet for you. Like there's definitely, some people are going to like autopilots. To me, like this would be perfect for one of those, something motorized, something like that. But sometimes you just want that. But the other things that the downside of these is, to me, is like when I catch a fish, I got to net it on one side or the other. So just stuff to think about on that. To me, they're really cool. I've seen a lot of guys doing them where they're putting them off back behind them, so they're actually sticking out further out the backside, so almost like flip of that photo, and so it keeps them behind you off that side, but it keeps them laid down as well. I feel like there's some like Batmobile that has like that comes
right, yeah,
rod holder or something like that. But that's if you like that horizontal rod storage rather than vertical. The cool thing is like on those you can buy additional of the stagers for the rods, and so you can literally stack those up right by each other. All those slide, the whole bracket there slides on the holder, so you could really dial that in. They also, if you go back to the previous page, they've got that center stage rod holder. It almost looks like a bullwinkle. Go down, yep, there you go, right there. And that one's kind of cool because if you say you do have that front, like you can put it out in front of you, maybe you're crappie fishing or spider rigging. That may be a really cool way to, put multiple rods out. And if you're fishing a brush pile or something like that. So those are just some of the examples of like the horizontal rod storage, and being able to get to those, fairly easy and quickly and being close to you.
Yeah, and one thing I will say too, I mean, because as we're talking about this, my head's spinning because I always think of, the more I go out and the longer I'm in the sport, I just don't like clutter. I'm probably a broken record in that. So like I keep trying to figure out ways to pare my setups down. And one thing to think about is if you're going to primarily fish sitting, you do need to think about whether or not you're going to be paddling and how you're going to reel in your fish and what side you're going to net it. Because for example, even these single ones, they do stand up pretty tall. So if you're going to be someone who's just sitting, it can get in your way depending, like you're really going to have to play with where you place it and how you like it and just fish. So it's some of those things. It's really kind of thinking about how you're going to fish, where you're going to fish. We always mention that for almost every accessory. And if you're going to be standing, these ones aren't a problem, or even really the bigger one we just showed off the side mount's probably not a problem because you can, no different than a boat. If you're standing, you can maneuver it around the front of your kayak and net how you want. So just really try to keep in mind how you're going to fish. If you're going to stand, like what you're fishing for, what the debris around you is like, are just a few things to consider when looking at all these.
And, everyone that comes to the shop that they buy a kayak, they're like, what else do I need? And it's kind of bad and kind of good, bad thing. Like to me, it's like we tell them, get on the water, take your paddle, your life jacket, your kayak, get on the water. If you want to take a rod, if you want to take some gear, but get out on the water. Like you're going to know as soon as you get out there after an hour, you're going to know, hey, this is some of the things I want. This is some of the things I'm thinking about. I mean, they make just about any accessory that you can think of. And if they don't, you can probably make it. That's the fun thing about the kayaking. One of those other rod holders is the tether tubes. They make those for the black packs. They are also made by Yak Attack. They make them for the black packs, but they can mount to any flat surface. Yeah, so another good option if you're looking to mount something flush is the Yak Attack tether tube. Those will mount directly to the black packs. They're really slick. You can mount them straight up. You can mount them at an angle. They are a little bit more permanent, so they're not as adjustable. But if you have a black pack, if you have that storage, which a lot of people do, you can put those on any side of that deal that you want. They're pretty sweet because they'll come with that little hook, and that hook's on a bungee. So you actually can put that bungee, just like to have it. You can put that bungee around the rod, and that'll help it. I've heard of guys, Truman Lakes. I call it Stump City, and it's just one of those lakes with a bunch of standing timber. And if you've got a rod up and your lure's hanging out, the lure could get caught on the tree and it just pulls it out. And sometimes you don't even notice since your rod's just hanging there, and it's like, where did that rod go? Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. I've heard some crazy stories. If you go back to that previous page, there's a really cool accessory, that tether tube turret. So, we talk about the horizontal storage, the all that. That is an accessory that you can mount to the black pack. And what that does is that allows you to actually turn that. So it makes that tether tube adjustable.
That was what my next question was going to be, is you might not be able to go horizontal and be able to get it, but okay, this answers even my own question then.
Yeah, so like the nice part about those is you do get on the river. If you get in a tight spot that you can actually lay those down, keep the bungee on them, and keep them. A lot of people don't. I don't know. I was kind of shocked when I first saw that, but that was one of those options. Like, that's pretty slick. Yeah. You can really dial in that black pack. I mean, the downside is you're probably losing some capability as far as how many rods you can do like that. But that does give you another option to get some more rod storage, laid down.
Yeah, it looks like maybe if you were clever with how you put it on there, you could maybe get 2 on each side.
Yeah, I've seen people do 2. You can adjust the height on that rod tube as well, so you can really get that dialed in. But yeah, I've seen people do 2. I haven't seen anybody do 3, but I'm sure if you played with it enough, you can get them lined up and go that route. But
having a ton of rod holders is that's, if you're a tournament angler, is really where I've seen, the back of it is like sometimes 10 to 12 rods. I know you're guilty of that too, but it makes sense. When you are in a tournament and you're switching between rods really quickly. So I guess it just kind of depends on, again, like where you're going, how you're fishing. If you're someone who's just getting started, you might not need more than two rods with you. Yeah. Because you're probably not doing tournaments yet, so you probably don't need that quick change, ability to just throw a rod back after you break one off and grab another one and go. So it really is like, if you're someone who doesn't like clutter, these are great options, because all your tackle can go on that crate, and then you can stick those on there too.
So, for those that are fly fishing, I know specifically like the Jackson Big Rig, they actually have a built-in spot where it's molded into the kayak that actually holds a fly rod, which is, the fly rod in itself is hard enough to store because there's no long butt on it. And then the other company that makes one too for their kayaks is New Canoe. They actually make a fly reel dock. Same kind of idea, gives you a way to store fly reel. So, those of you guys that are fly fishing, that gives you some options there. That's going to mount to track. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you could mount it to a different kayak, because it is just track mounted. But that gives you a way to, get that fly rod and that reel strapped down, and that way it's secured. So those of you guys that are fly fishing, that gives you an option as well.
Yeah, I'll try and throw up the Big Rig here too, because it is kind of cool how it's molded into the kayak. And
we didn't realize it at first. We're like, what the heck is this? And then we started looking into it, and it's like, it's for a fly rod. It makes sense, because that spot was further back in the kayak, and then usually those fly rods, they're typically a little bit longer. That gives you.
Yeah, I don't have a great picture of it up close, but
that's something to think about too if you're fly fishing. There is like companies do make, internal or flush mounted rod holders. So if you're willing to drill into your kayak, you can literally put one of those just about anywhere. Just kind of food for thought on that stuff is like if you have access to inside the kayak, make sure you're not going to drill a hole through an internal, like if you got a pedal drive as steering or some sort of cables in there, just kind of be mindful of that. Try and get inside and make sure that you don't have anything on that backside. But that's always an option for flush mounted. And then you also want to make sure you have enough room in there, because that usually that flush is anywhere from 8 to 10 inches going into the kayak. So you just want to make sure that you've got enough room on the inside there. But you could really customize it and go that route.
Yeah, I recommend the backing plates if you're adding track too. If anything, use the backing plates if anything's going to have weight. I mean, that is really thin plastic or PVC. I know I didn't do it on a few of mine, and you put an accessory on it and you can almost see your kayak kind of like buckle under the weight. So I went back, like, Yak Attack makes the rigging bullets. They look complex, but actually it's really not that bad to use. They got some pretty good videos on how to do that. And obviously if you want to reach out and ask us too, we can help guide you through some of that stuff. I was someone who was super afraid of doing it, and now on one of my kayaks I've added so much stuff and drilled so many holes, and I haven't had any issues. So if I can do it, anyone can do it, basically. So yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it really just comes down to if you're watching this and you're new, get your kayak, take it out, and maybe start with one of those Yak Attack Omega rod holders. Like if it's got accessory track, you can move it anywhere. It's versatile. Don't get huge eyes and buy a bunch of stuff and then find out you might not use it. Get it out on the water, like Johnathan said, and figure out where you want it and figure out where it would be helpful. And then kind of walk back and buy stuff as needed.
Yeah, I was definitely guilty of that. And I remember one time a long time ago, I bought a used kayak, and that guy had a bunch of accessories. He said the same thing. He's like, I only use like half of these, and I'm just gonna throw them in there. Like, but don't get crazy. Like, there's some simple things that paddle life jacket, like out the gate, like that's a no brainer.
Yep.
Like, you may get a rod holder and you may not use it all day and be like, hey, why did I spend my money on this? Now, granted, they're not crazy expensive, but that's money that you could put into something else that you really want. When I take, my wife on the kayak, she wants 2 cup holders. She wants the cooler and snacks and a book. And so like everyone's a little bit different based on their needs. So like, like we said, just get on the water, see what you need. Like you're going to know pretty quick, like what you need and what you want. And even once, like every time I add something into my kayak, I probably move it 3 or 4 times before I actually get it where I want it to.
Yep.
Like as soon as I'm out on like in the garage tinkering, it's like, oh, this is going to work perfect right here. And you're like, you get on the water and you want to throw it in the lake. Cause that's like, this is the wrong spot. Like, but
I think that's an every time I kayak.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll dial it in for one and then I'll go out the next time. And it feels like I'm in a completely different kayak. Be like, why did this make sense last time? So yeah, I feel like the tinkering is a never ending part of kayaking. But yeah, I did the same thing when I bought mine. I like loaded up on accessories, and now I've got a bunch that over time with different kayaks that I've got to try now, like they've come in handy, and I've moved them around between multiple kayaks. But all the accessories I thought were going to go on one was like, oh, this is not useful at all. My paddle hits it every time I go because I put a rod holder on both sides and had nowhere to net a fish. So yeah, it's fun, but it's learning. It's all about learning. And I mean, hopefully we walk through the different types and kind of at least force some people to ask themselves some questions, or inspire them to ask themselves some questions about how they're going to fish, where they're going to fish, and what they think would be useful. I know it's simple. It's a simple accessory, simple topic, but small amount of space, no matter how big your kayak is, like every little piece of equipment does matter to how you enjoy yourself on the water.